Hey kids, John here. Want to talk about optimizing our practice session. In other words, getting the most out of what we practice. How do we do that? I've had the honor and pleasure of being able to interact with some very, very fine trumpet players over many, many years. And one of the things that I notice is they all concentrate like crazy. So there's some things that these type of players have in common. High level of concentration. They're self-aware. They self-assess, and their goal is excellence. They always want to play in an excellent manner. So how do we incorporate that? How do we gain better concentration, better self-awareness? How do we self-assess? And how do we implement this type of an idea that I have a goal for excellence at all time? When we pick up a horn, we have to be present. I've watched guys do a warm-up where they might as well be on their phone and having a cup of coffee while somebody else is doing their warm-up for them. They're not there. If your warm-up is, I play these notes to these notes, and then I play these notes in this way, and then I play this, and then I'm warmed up. Okay, I guess. You know, it's not about what you're playing, it's about how you're playing it. I have a video on what I do for a warm-up. I am absolutely not saying that this is the way you should do your warm-up. But I think there are some things in the video about my warm-up that do make some sense for all of us when we're first approaching our instrument. For me, I set some goals. This is key to getting the most out of your practice session. You've got to have goals. Okay, you've got to have goals, and that then that becomes like this standard. Oh, this is my goal, so here's the standard. I must meet the standard. I must achieve my goal by doing this. I try to start my day. Every time I pull the horn out of my case, I try to develop a sound in the most relaxed manner possible. This sets me up for the concept of playing very relaxed. A lot of players out there are like, how do I get rid of tension? Stop being tense. Well, how do I do that? Learn to relax. You got to go the other direction. You got to learn how to relax. So I think that when we start our day by trying to be relaxed, it's going to pay dividends over time. And you will learn to play relaxed every time you pick up your horn. So I start my very first note very relaxed, and then I try to warm that note up into a beautiful sound. So what's a beautiful sound? If you don't know or have an idea of what a beautiful sound is, absolutely, in this case, go on the internet and go to a trumpet forum or a trumpet social media page and ask the question, who has the most beautiful sound? And then you're going to get a bunch of answers. So take the top 5. In other words, the name that pops up the most. Take those 5 names, the most common 5 names that you see, and then search for videos of them and listen to as many videos of these great players as possible, and develop the idea or the concept of what a beautiful, good sound is. With that concept in mind, then you can take your warm-up and develop a good sound. I do it on one note, and then I slowly, note by note, put it together to encompass a full register. My warm-up really only takes me between 5 and 15 minutes, depending upon how much time I have, how I feel, and what my chops are like that day. I'm going to change my warm-up to some degree according to how I feel and how I sound. If I'm not getting a good sound, I'm going to make adjustments. I got the absolute pleasure of being involved in a master class given by Pacho Flores. Pacho Flores is a killer trumpet player. This guy is a world-class player. And he has a gorgeous sound. His masterclass started with the warm-up. It started with him explaining what he does, showing how he goes about it, and he's so relaxed he's got a person feeling his throat as he plays through registers. It's incredible. But he calls it organizing his sound. If your warm-up is not geared towards you getting a relaxed full sound, you might consider changing your warm-up. So the warm-up should definitely, as a goal, have that good sound component in it, and it should have a relaxed approach in it. So you're always starting your day relaxed and getting a good sound. That's a big win to me. You have to be there in the moment, and you have to be aware of what you're doing, and then have the capability to self-assess. So moving forward into our technical studies, our characteristic studies, or our, scale studies, articulation studies, all the stuff that we do to gain control and command of our playing, our technical process, is the next thing that we need to look at. You must start by playing every exercise as meticulously as you can. There's your excellence. I'm going to play this exercise like this famous player that I've been listening to would play it. I'm going to play like them. I'm going to play it with this beautiful sound and play it perfect. The first thing you need to do as you're playing exercises is slow down. Slow it down and make sure you can play everything correctly. If you've got a section in that exercise that you're not playing correctly, stop and fix that section. Tear apart that section. I have a video on how to learn technical passages or difficult passages. You tear that thing apart, you make it sound really, really good, and then you start connecting it to what came before it and after it. So if this is like a 2 or 3 bar section, you play that until you have it. Then you play the bar before it and that part of it, and the bar before it and that part of it, and the bar before it and that part of it. Then you play the bar before it, that part of it, and the bar after it. Bar before it, that part, and the bar after. Bar before it, that part, and the bar after it. And then you keep expanding both directions until ultimately you've got this thing that was a problem now completely fixed, and you've bridged the 2 sections that you could already play by fixing the part that was bad. And that's what I mean when I talk about bridging sections. You fix a section, and then you connect it to both sides of what you already can play. But you have to admit that you had this issue. I got to hear, this was an incredible moment for me. I got to hear the great Mark Inouye, principal, San Francisco, play for 2 days on stage and backstage. I was playing in a group that played along with the symphony in a concert. My gosh, Mark's such a great player. Wow. I mean, just hearing him was such a pleasure. But a moment came, and this is exactly what I'm talking about. He was backstage playing something, and he was doing some kind of descending run, if I remember right. And one note in the midst of that run was just not quite like the rest. It was just not sitting perfectly in line. It was just off a little bit. And it wasn't a chip. It wasn't a wrong note. It just didn't sound like everything around it. He immediately stopped, and he said, "Nope, that's not who I am." And he went back and he just hammered this thing several times. And he made sure that that was an anomaly and not the norm. Okay? So this is absolutely a great example of this concept of being absolutely self-aware when you're practicing or when you're playing. You've got to know when you did something wrong. And if you're practicing, you've got to fix it. Now, there is the classic statement that paralysis by over-analysis. Yes, if you're over-analyzing yourself the entire time you're playing, well, then that truly can become a problem. So what we need to do is we need to have this concept of excellence. And to help develop that, you can listen to these same players that have this beautiful sound in many, many different videos to develop the concept of just their overall excellent approach. If you can make their excellent approach your excellent approach and dedicate yourself to trying to play the way they would play, you're going to demand more of yourself. Because if you're not trying to reach for some type of goal, you're probably not moving forward. And if you're not paying attention to how you're playing, you're probably moving backwards. So paying attention to what you're doing is huge. It's a huge thing, and it's extremely important to our success. I know a lot of players that are excited about new books because, man, this book, oh, this is it. This is going to do it. Sometimes it's about range, sometimes it's about techniques. But that new book, it's going to do it. Well, if you approach this new book the same way you've approached everything in the past, how are you going to get a different result? It's not what you're practicing it, it's how you're practicing it. You've got to be meticulous and you've got to fix mistakes. So it can be frustrating from the idea that this is time consuming. Well, when I was in Japan, I was responsible for doing what we called after actions reports, and these would explain the process that was involved in a concert to ensure that everything was done as efficiently as possible. Very good system. But the problem was, for me, I was really slow. And I was speaking with my great Japanese friend that worked in the organization, and I said, you know, I hate doing these reports because they take me so long. I'm so slow at it. And he said, it doesn't matter how long it takes you. What really matters is if you get it right. If you take this, what seemingly might be a longer amount of time, to actually learn this and get command of something, and now you've got command of it, the next step is to try and master it, okay? And this is where we add music to it. This is where the idea that this is a technical exercise and now I'm going to play it with a musical approach. Every technical exercise, every study that we practice or play is meant in some way to support what we do in music. It's meant in some way to help us play music. So if you take this exercise, develop a command of it, and then try to master it, it's going to provide you greater results than any other approach that's out there. If you just try and speed it up and see if you can make it through without tripping and falling, this isn't command and it's not mastery. When you add this idea of mastering this, now you've just completely blown everything out of the water and expanded what you're trying to do. And once you've done this once, you're going to go, wow, that's amazing. Because once you just nail something and it just comes out beautifully, you're going to want to do it again and again and again. And you're going to be excited for the journey. You're not going to be worried about the end of the journey because you know what's going to happen. You've done it. So being able to get command of something and then master it is absolutely what the goal should be. And this is excellence. So what you're doing is you're setting a goal for excellence. You're concentrating on what you're doing so you can hear what you're doing and that you can assess whether it's correct or not. If it's not correct, you're stopping, you're fixing the problem. You're actually fixing the problem and putting a permanent fix on it, not just something that's temporary. You may have to go back and work that section all by itself several days in a row and then start connecting it to the rest of the piece. But the bottom line is, if you do this process and you demand excellence from yourself and you fix things that are wrong, it's going to change your approach. And on top of all of this, you should be doing this in the most relaxed way possible with a great sound. And that starts in the very beginning moments that you pick up your instrument. It's not what you practice, it's how you practice it. I hope all this helps. Take it easy, kids.